Good afternoon. Let's start with one element at the top, and that is today we celebrate the 32nd anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, the world's first comprehensive civil rights law for persons with disabilities. The ADA inspires the world to see disability through a lens of equity and expands opportunities for persons with disabilities to fully and proudly contribute to global progress. Disability rights are human rights, and ensuring that persons with disabilities can participate in all aspects of society is a priority of this administration. We recognize how disability adds strength through diversity in the fabric of our communities around the globe. As a landmark U.S. law, the ADA sparked an international shift from viewing persons with disabilities as objects of charity to individuals with rights who are valuable members of society. This perspective serves as a beacon to the more than 1 billion persons with disabilities worldwide. That's 1 in every 7 of us. Special Advisor on International Disability Rights, Sarah Mankara, is at the forefront of our efforts to protect the rights of persons, and she travels around the world to disrupt the narrative of disability from a charity-based model to one that is value-based. At the State Department, we strive to be a model for a workplace of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, where all employees are treated with respect. This administration has emphasized this commitment through Executive Order 1435, in which accessibility has been embedded as a core pillar in reflecting, respecting, and advancing our diversity. As the Secretary's Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, Ambassador Gina Abercrombie Winstanley has affirmed, we don't limit our recognition of disability pride or commitment to disability inclusion to one day or to 1 month. We strive to recognize these important issues every single day. This ADA anniversary, we recommit to shaping a future in which persons with disabilities enjoy all of their human rights and their fundamental freedoms fully. Every day, we remain committed to promoting disability rights at home and abroad.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay. Can I ask you about the cases of 2 American citizens? One, Shireen Abu Akleh. Can you bring us up to date on the Secretary's meeting with her, which may still be going on, I guess so. And then the second one is Brittany Griner, who's back in court again today.
Sure. So let me start with the family of Shireen Abu Akleh. I can confirm that Secretary Blinken is meeting today at this very moment, in fact, with the family of Shireen Abu Akleh. As you know, the Secretary has spoken to her family on a number of occasions now, and during the most recent call, he invited her family to meet with him here at the State Department in Washington. I suspect you'll see something from the Secretary following the meeting, but I can tell you that the Secretary is deeply appreciative of the opportunity to meet with Shireen's family. Not only was she an American citizen, she was a reporter whose fearless pursuit of the truth earned her the profound respect of audiences around the world. He'll use the opportunity to underscore for Shireen's family our deepest condolences on her tragic death and to reiterate the priority we attach to accountability, something we continue to discuss with our Israeli and Palestinian partners as well. Anything else on that before we go on to the case of Brittany Griner?
Well, yeah, does he have anything to say to them more than what was said, what has been said previously?
Well, we have said an awful lot on this case, and as you know...
I know, and I'm asking you if there's anything new in what he's able to tell them today than what you might have been able to say yesterday.
Well, part of this meeting is, yes, the Secretary, providing the Secretary an opportunity to convey messages to them. It will be a message of condolence. There will be a message of the priority we attach to accountability going forward. But this is also equally an opportunity for the Secretary to hear from the family, to hear their important perspective, to have a dialogue back and forth, something we have sought to have.
I get that, and that's fine, but he has spoken with them before.
Yes.
Maybe not face to face.
This is the first time in person, and obviously...
I know, so, but does he have anything new to share with them today that he didn't have the last time he spoke?
It's hard for me to get into the details of a meeting that probably is not concluded just yet. But what I can say is that he will reiterate the messages that he has conveyed publicly. He will reiterate them directly and in person to them. He, I suspect, will also update them on our engagements with our Israeli and Palestinian partners on this case.
Okay, well, does that mean that once the meeting is over, you can update us on your engagements with the Israeli, in particular with the Israelis, but also with the Palestinians?
I suspect you will see something from us on this later today, and we'll have more details to share after the meeting. Sean.
To follow up on that, one of the things that the family's been asking for, and they said explicitly that they're gonna ask this to the secretary, is for the United States to launch its own probe, or for there to be an independent probe into Hercule. Is that something that the secretary is going to back?
What we have done is something that is in some ways unusual, given, but it is not unusual given the priority we have attached to this case. Again, as an American citizen and as a reporter whose life was taken under tragic circumstances, and that is the fact that the U.S. security coordinator worked closely with Israeli investigators, with Palestinian investigators, and in this case, did his own summary of those investigations, reaching a series of conclusions. Not only did the team do a forensics examination of the bullet, whose passage from Palestinian authorities to independent examiners, in this case, we facilitated, but concluded, based on the two investigations that are being conducted, that the bullets that tragically took the life of Shireen Abu Akleh most likely emanated from an IDF position, and the U.S. security coordinator also found no indication that there was any intentionality behind the tragic death of Shireen. So that is something that we have done. We have published the findings in this case. We believe that by publishing the findings, it speaks to our commitment to pursuing an investigation that is credible, an investigation that is thorough, and importantly, an investigation that culminates in accountability. And it is that question of accountability that we have continued to discuss with our Palestinian partners and, of course, with our Israeli partners as well.
Just to follow up on that, I mean, one of the things is that the family says that they actually want some fresh probe by the United States. So it's basically that's the answer that the secretary is going to give, that they don't think there's any need for anything new.
Well, our focus has been on bridging these two investigations and doing all that we can to see to it that the investigations that are being carried out are thorough, they're done exhaustively, they are done transparently, and again, that they end in accountability. We made the point shortly after we released the statement on July 4th that we do continue to expect to see accountability. In the case of the IDF, again, the U.S. security coordinator concluded that the bullet most likely emanated from an IDF position. The IDF, of course, is a professional military organization, and given that, it has the ability to implement processes and procedures to avoid non-combatant casualties. We think that type of accountability is important. It's our collective goal to do everything we possibly can, working with our partners to see to it that something like this cannot happen again.
Okay, so I just counted, you used the word accountability 4 times separately in the last minute. So what's new on the accountability front? And what's new in terms of how you expect to get accountability?
Well, I didn't come out here with a new message. I came out here to reiterate the message that we have clearly and consistently conveyed, both in public and in private, to our partners on this.
Oh, okay, I get that, and I'll stop. We can go on to someone else, but just calling for accountability without actually doing anything to get it.
You were right. You were right that we are calling for it. What is also true is that we are having private conversations with our partners in this case, our Palestinian partners and our Israeli partners in this instance, to promote what we think is important. And it is a word that, as you rightly point out, I have used several times already, even in the past minute, because it is a priority for us. It is a priority for us that we see appropriate accountability.
Can I just follow up on that again?
Sure.
On the accountability, you're saying that there needs to be accountability. Is there any sort of time frame for this? I mean, if Israel kept saying that, the IDF keeps saying that it's probing this and they're trying to get to the bottom of this, if that probe goes on forever, is that, I mean, is there some sort of time frame in which there needs to be some more concrete accountability?
Well, we do want to see an investigation that is thorough, that's credible, that's transparent. And part of that, an investigation that is credible, there has to be an element of timeliness to this. We do understand that sometimes these elements are run at cross purposes, timeliness and thoroughness, but we want to see an investigation that is both timely, but is also thorough, and that importantly concludes in accountability.
Can we turn to Americans detained in Russia?
Sure.
Okay. With Brittany Griner's hearing today, obviously the administration has been very clear that they're, working to get her home. But would you say that there are active discussions with the Russians to come to some sort of deal to get her home right now?
I would say that we have made the case of Brittany Griner, we have made the case of Paul Whelan an absolute priority, and we are working actively, quietly, behind the scenes to do everything we can to see that their wrongful detentions come to an end as quickly as possible. Of course, not going to detail exactly what it is that we are doing, but of course, there has to be, and there is, engagement with Russian authorities on both of these cases, just as we are discussing with relevant authorities around the world. The cases of Americans who are wrongfully detained and who've been separated from their families for far too long. As we do that, we are working closely with the families. We are meeting with them. We are having conversations with them. Our consular officers around the world are providing all possible support to Americans who are wrongfully detained. In the case of Brittany Griner, as you know, she had another court appearance today. Our charge, the senior-most embassy official currently in Moscow, was present in the courtroom, as was another senior official from our embassy. They had an opportunity to see Brittany Griner, to speak to her, to check in on her welfare. She confirmed that she is doing okay under the circumstances, and we have routinely conveyed those discussions back to the family, to Brittany Griner's wife in this case. We'll continue to do that.
And would you say that you guys are satisfied with the Russian engagement on these cases? You said there has been engagement, but are you satisfied with the degree to which there's been engagement?
We are never going to be satisfied until Brittany Griner is back with her wife, until Paul Whelan is back with his family, until wrongful detainees around the world have been released from custody. So we don't look at this in terms of satisfaction. We look at this through the lens of doing everything we possibly can to see to it that these individuals are reunited with their families as quickly as we can.
And just one more question on Mark Vogel, an American who was sentenced to 14 years in prison in June for the crime of carrying cannabis into the country. Does the State Department view that sentence as appropriate for the crime that he committed?
There's only so much I can say given privacy considerations in this case. As you know, privacy considerations vary case by case. But of course, we're aware of a U.S. citizen sentenced in Russia. We take seriously our responsibility to assist U.S. citizens abroad. We're monitoring the situation. More broadly, and this applies to all Americans who are detained in Russia, be they detained wrongfully in our estimation or otherwise, we insist that the government of Russia allow consistent, timely consular access to all U.S. citizens, U.S. citizen detainees, including those in pretrial detention in compliance with its various obligations, including those under the Vienna Convention, including those in the context of our bilateral relationship. We've continued to urge Russian authorities to allow this, and we also continue to press for fair and transparent treatment for all U.S. citizens detained in Russia.
And then the term wrongfully detained has not been applied to the case of Mark Vogel. So can you just explain why that's the case, given there are some similarities to the crime he committed and the crime that Brittany Griner committed?
Well, each case is unique, and in determining whether a detention is wrongful and determining if a detention is wrongful. We look at the totality of the circumstances. And those circumstances are then weighed against a series of criteria and factors. The Bob Levinson legislation that was passed some years ago, and in fact was just codified in key ways into the EO, defines some of those considerations that we look at. But I want to make an important point. There is never, we never close the book when it comes to any particular case. We are constantly looking at the facts. We are constantly looking at the circumstances. As we learn more about any given case, as we learn more about the circumstances of detention, the charges, fair trial guarantees, due process or lack thereof, we are always weighing those developments against the criteria to determine whether an American is wrongfully held or not. Yes, Gita. Sure.
Seems like Joseph Borrell has called the end of the nuclear negotiations with Iran. In his opinion piece in the Financial Times today, says that he tabled a proposal taking into consideration the steps both sides have to take because he doesn't think there's any more room for compromise. Is his proposal fully acceptable to the Biden administration?
Well, I'll start with something you've heard before from us, and that is that we're not going to negotiate in public. What I can say is that we are reviewing the draft understanding on mutual return to full implementation with the JCPOA that the High Representative shared with us, as well as with Iran and the other JCPOA participants. We will share reactions we have directly with the EU. But as we said already, and this is something you heard as recently as yesterday, there's been an outline of what we believe to be a good deal on the table since March that we have been prepared to accept. And we understand that this new text that Mr. Borrell referred to, its basis is that draft that has been on the table since March. We are studying the changes that have been proposed by the EU. We'll respond to them in short order. And we hope that Iran finally and ultimately decides to seize the opportunity that has been before it for some time now.
Is there a time frame within which both sides have to answer?
I think you saw in the op-ed that Mr. Borrell published today, he didn't allude to a time frame. We are going to be swift in our review of the proposal that he put forward. We know that time is of the essence. But again, we also know that Iran's nuclear program has galloped forward in such a way that the parameters of the mutual return to compliance that have been in the offing for several months now is, to us, to our national interest, far preferable than where we are today. So we are going to continue to pursue a mutual return to compliance with the JCPOA for as long as it's in our interest to do so. That remains the case.
How can you say that time is of the essence?
Time is an important consideration in this.
When did that become important?
We've always said
I
that.
mean, look, we've been having the same conversation pretty much every day for the last 8 months, 9 months, even maybe 10
Almost
months.
a year.
And it's been, the runway has been shortening, the window has been closing since the beginning of this year.
And the fact is that
And so now all of a sudden time is of the essence?
The
What is
fact-
that
the
exactly
fact
supposed to
is-
mean? And what is it supposed to mean to the
the fact
Iranians
is
when
that
you
the
keep-
deal that has been available to Iran for a number of months now is
Yeah,
still in our national security interest. That will not be the case indefinitely. We will reach a point, and again, this is a point that I can't define for you right now.
Which means it's indefinite.
That
That's the very definition of indefinite.
I think we
Is
have
it not?
we may have different definitions of indefinite, but this is what I can tell you, Matt. What you know is that we will reach a point where it is no longer in our interest to pursue a mutual return to compliance.
All right, I
The
still
point at
understand how
which
you- all of a sudden today, time is of the essence, when, you've been saying that for the last 8 months, and you still can't say, you say you can't put a date on anything, or that is the very definition of indefinite.
Matt, as we've said before, the point at which we will pursue alternatives is the point at which it's no longer in our interest to pursue a mutual return to compliance.
Well, I thought you already had a plan B. I mean, you already had prepared for the.
We have. We've been working with partners and allies on this for some time now. So the point is that when we reach the point where the JCPOA, the non-proliferation benefits it would convey have been eroded by the advancements in Iran's nuclear program, that is the point at which we'll pursue these alternatives that we've been discussing for some time now.
Just one question on that. Have you guys stopped using the term a few weeks to describe when that time will be for any particular reason?
I believe the reference you're alluding to is Iran's breakout time.
Yeah.
And the fact is that when the JCPOA was being fully implemented by Iran in this case, its breakout time at one point was 12 months. With the decision on the part of the previous administration to leave a deal that was verifiably working to constrain Iran's nuclear program, Iran's nuclear program in the preceding few years has been able to gallop forward in such a way that Iran's breakout time is now measured in weeks or less. So that has not changed.
Yeah, one last one on this. Is this development the reason the hearing tomorrow at House Foreign Affairs Committee has been canceled or postponed?
I'm not aware of any connection, but if we have any details to offer on that hearing, we'll let you know. Yes.
On Tunisia, now that there's a projected outcome, what is the U.S. view of the referendum?
Well, we note the outcome that has been reported by the Independent High Authority for Elections, or ICE, and civil society election observers. The referendum has been marked by low turnout. That is something that we do note. A broad range of Tunisia's civil society, media, and political parties have expressed deep concerns regarding the referendum. And in particular, we note the widespread concerns among many Tunisians regarding the lack of an inclusive and transparent process and limited scope for genuine public debate during the drafting of the new constitution. We also note concerns that the new constitution includes weakened checks and balances that could compromise the protection of human rights and fundamental freedoms. With legislative elections scheduled for the end of the year, we continue to stress the importance of respect for the separation of powers and an inclusive and transparent electoral law that enables wide participation in those elections. Yes.
Thanks so much. Can I ask your comment on upcoming Erdogan-Putin meeting in Sochi, both in terms of PR element of it, also in terms of the fact that Putin is being allowed to meet with a world leader, let alone a NATO member, another time.
I'll need to defer to our Turkish allies to speak to the intent and any agenda for President Erdogan's potential travel. What I can say is that our Turkish allies have been instrumental in working to secure the grain deal that was signed last week. And of course, the onus is now on Moscow to stand by and to uphold the commitments that it has made. Turkey has been an important mediator, has sought to play a role mediating between the parties more broadly in the context of Russia's war against Ukraine. We've said consistently that we support all efforts to bring Russia's aggression to an end that are coordinated fully, in the first instance with Ukraine, but also with the United States and our allies and partners.
I know that you also responded to some of Lavrov's comments yesterday when I was in the room, but Russia says explicitly that it actually seeks some regime change in Ukraine. I was wondering, Lavrov today even repeated the same statement. That's an apparent reversal from their wartime messaging. What do you comment on that?
Well, it is a messaging reversal. I'm not sure that it is a policy reversal. It's a messaging reversal in that you were right. Before February 24th, we heard consistently the lie from various Kremlin officials that this was about some perceived threat from Ukraine, from NATO, from the United States. We called all of that a lie at the time. And since then, but especially in recent days, the Russians have been doing as good a job of anyone of debunking their own disinformation and their own lies. Referred to what Sergei Lavrov said yesterday, and you alluded to this. He called President Zelensky and his government in Kyiv a quote-unquote unacceptable regime, making clear that that this was not what Russia purported it to be. Just the previous week, he admitted that Russia's quote-unquote geographical goals go well beyond the Donbass to include Kherson, Zaporizhia, other sovereign regions of Ukraine. It hasn't just been Foreign Minister Lavrov. It wasn't all that long ago, as Secretary Blinken has pointed out on a couple of occasions now, that President Putin spoke, compared himself to Peter the Great, noted that when Peter went to war with Sweden, he was simply looking to take back what Peter thought belonged to Russia. President Putin went on to note that Russia is again looking to take back what is theirs. So repeatedly, senior Russian officials have put to the lie just about everything that we heard from them prior to the invasion. They have made clear in doing so, this is not a defensive operation. This is, in fact, what it always appeared to be, and that is a war of territorial conquest. That's why it's so important that countries around the world stand not only with Ukraine, to help it defend its sovereignty, its territorial integrity, its independence, but also to stand with the rules-based international order that for decades now, since the end of World War II, has made clear that we cannot reside in a world where might makes right, where large countries can bully the small ones, where a country's foreign policy can be dictated by any other country.
And very quickly on to follow up on Russian imprisonment question, albeit my question is about non-US citizens. Helsinki Commission leadership yesterday sent out a letter to the administration urging them to use every possible instrument in our toolkit to release political prisoner Vladimir Kara-Murza. Do you have any response to that?
We have consistently called for his release. We have noted that his detention comes in the context of a broader crackdown on civil society, on fundamental freedoms, on human rights within Russia. This is a government that has made very clear that it is not willing to countenance dissent or vocal opposition. These are the actions of a regime, of a government that is fundamentally afraid of the ability of its citizens to speak the truth, to spread the truth, and to exercise, in doing so, the rights that are as universal to them as they are to people around the world. Sean.
Something more in Russia.
Sure.
The space program.
Sure.
Russia announcing that it will no longer participate after 2024 in the International Space Station. How does the United States feel about this? Does it have confirmation that this is the case? How will it affect the space program?
We've seen Russia's statement that it plans to leave the International Space Station after 2024. It's an unfortunate development given the critical scientific work performed at the ISS, the valuable professional collaboration our space agencies have had over the years, and especially in light of our renewed agreement on spaceflight cooperation. I expect NASA will have more details for you.
Do you hope that they'll revisit this, or do you think is that something that's underway, negotiations to, or any sort of discussion about this?
I understand that we were taken by surprise by the public statement that went out. I'm not aware that discussions on this front have started yet, but would need to refer you to NASA for that.
I know that you don't like to talk about history, but since you mentioned in relation to Peter the Great and Foreign Minister Lavrov and President Putin, given that Peter the Great also was the one who opened up Russia to the West, went on a grand tour of Europe, built Russia, what was then the modern Russian Navy. Do you find it at all jarring that they would pull out of a scientific thing like the ISS now, given President Putin's apparent desire to be seen as a modern day explorer?
I will leave that to the Russians to speak to their motivations. Here, I will just note that the United States and Russia, we have cooperated on space exploration for years now, over the course of decades. We obviously, Russia's invasion of Ukraine has obviously changed our relationship fundamentally, but there are still aspects of our relationship, including our joint pursuits in science, joint pursuits in safety, people-to-people ties that we would like to see preserved, and the Russians are sending a contrary signal here. Yes.
So Israel revealed today that in May, Russia fired at one of its military jets. I was wondering if the State Department is aware of this, and also if they agree with Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz's assessment that it was a one-off, and have they communicated with Russia at all over this incident?
I would need to refer you to our Israeli partners to speak to any engagements that they've had with Russia regarding this. That's not something we would weigh in on. Yes.
Ned, anything on the Turkish killing of the SDF second in command?
We've called for an immediate de-escalation in northern Syria. We believe it's crucial for all sides to maintain and respect ceasefire zones to enhance stability in Syria and work towards a political solution to the conflict.
And Ned, so in just the past month, an estimated of 18 SDF members have been killed by Turkey. So is there anything else that the US can do apart from just calling on your ally to cease the hostilities? Because if Turkey continues at this rate, you may run out of partners soon. So a no-fly zone, that's something that the SDF have been kind of floating the idea of a no-fly zone. Is that something that you guys can support, or is that a...
We continue to have these discussions with key partners and allies. We continue to have these discussions with our Turkish allies. We've made clear to them in private what we've made clear in public, and this is something that we reiterated again last week. The deep concerns we have about the potential for renewed military activity in northern Syria, in particular its impact on the civilian population. We have made clear our specific concern that any renewed offensive of this sort, any broader offensive of this sort, could set back the significant gains that the coalition has made against Daesh in recent years. It could have humanitarian implications on the civilian population in the region, and it would certainly not be in the interest of the political process pursuant to UN Security Council Resolution 2254.
Just quickly, so is that for a renewed incursion by Turkey into Syria, or does that also apply to sporadic kind of drone attacks on SDF commanders?
We're speaking to a renewed offensive into northeast Syria.
Can I follow up on that, please?
Sure.
So you said we continue discussion. The question was about no-fly zone. Are you discussing no-fly zone with anybody in the region?
I would need to refer you to the Department of Defense. We are, for the part of the State Department, we are having diplomatic engagements with our allies and partners, of course, with our Turkish allies in this case.
About what?
About our concern regarding the potential for a broader and renewed military offensive in northeastern Syria. Yes.
So in North Korea, South Korean government officials said that there is a possibility North Korea will conduct its 7th nuclear test on the occasion of Korean War Armistice Day, which is tomorrow, the 27th of this month. So is the State Department sharing this concern or discussing about this matter with South Korean government? And does the US still assess that North Korea will conduct its nuclear tests soon?
Our concerns regarding the potential for a 7th North Korean nuclear test have not abated. We have spoken publicly to these concerns for a couple of months now. You have heard assessments that our ROK counterparts have made public, that the DPRK regime has conducted all necessary preparations for a potential nuclear test. That has not changed. We have continued to be very clear in our public statements, but also working closely with our allies and partners in the Indo-Pacific and well beyond to make clear that any additional nuclear test that the DPRK conducts would carry tremendous costs. And we've been working with allies and partners in New York, capitals in the Indo-Pacific and around the world to send a very clear message to the DPRK regarding this. Yes.
Ask you on the same topic. is the State Department reviewing to update the U.S. North Korea policy as South Korea is crafting its roadmap for their own North Korean policy that is known as the Audacious Plan, which is including the measures to implement economic cooperation with North Korea and provide security guarantees for the country.
When this administration first came into office, we spent several months conducting our own policy review, taking a look at what the prior administration had done vis-a-vis the DPRK, what previous administrations had done vis-a-vis the DPRK, what had worked, but unfortunately, more of what has not worked over the course of decades when it comes to the DPRK and specifically its WMD program. So we undertook a comprehensive review. The policy that resulted from that is the policy that we have articulated publicly and the one that we've pursued for the better part of almost 2 years now. It is a policy that believes that dialogue and diplomacy and engagement are the best courses by which we can achieve the complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. We've made clear as a result of that policy review that we harbor no hostile intent towards the DPRK. In fact, we have made clear our willingness to engage in dialogue with the DPRK to determine how we might be able to move forward with that diplomacy. Unfortunately, those requests, those invitations have gone substantively unanswered.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a couple of questions. First on Iraq. Iraqi foreign minister has said that Iraq will ask the Security Council to vote on a resolution that pushes the Turkish forces out of Iraq. Will the U.S. support Iraq in this demand?
We're aware of the complaint made by the government of Iraq at the Security Council and the statement that the Security Council released today on this. We reaffirm our position that military action in Iraq should respect Iraqi sovereignty, should respect Iraqi territorial integrity. We expressed our condolences, we reiterate our condolences to the families and loved ones of those who were killed or injured. And we emphasize the importance of ensuring civilians are protected, but we need to refer you to the government of Iraq for further comment.
But will you support Iraq in the UN Security Council?
We've supported those principles, including the principles that were articulated in the UN Security Council statement that was released today.
And any comment on the clashes between the Libyan military factions in Tripoli?
This is something that is highly concerning to us. We urge all groups to refrain from violence. Ambassador Norland, our special envoy, spoke with Abdelhamid Dbeibeh and Fatih Bashaga on Sunday, both committed to finding ways to de-escalate the situation and to prevent further loss of life. We believe that the recent clashes demonstrate the urgent necessity for Libya's political leaders to immediately and embrace an agreed upon path to elections which can install a truly legitimate, unified government to serve the interests of all Libyans.
And one on Hezbollah Secretary General issued a new threat against Israel over the maritime dispute and said if the extraction of gas from Karish begins in September before Lebanon gets its rights, we will have a problem. Will this threat affect the U.S. mediation, and what about this deadline, September deadline?
We've seen these reports. We don't respond to threats, but we do remain committed to facilitating negotiations between Lebanon and Israel to reach a decision on the delimitation of the maritime boundary. Progress towards a resolution can only be achieved through negotiations by the two governments. We welcome the consultative and open spirit of the parties to reach a decision, a final decision, which has the potential to yield greater stability, security, and prosperity for both Lebanon and Israel, as well as for the region. And we do believe that a resolution is possible.
Any update on Special Envoy or Advisor Hochstein travel to Lebanon?
I don't have any travel to speak to, but he has remained engaged with the parties since his last travel to the region. Simon.
Thanks.
I wonder if you had any update of the last week's developments with the Ukrainian Prosecutor General being dismissed, and particularly from a US point of view, does that change your position in terms of the atrocity crime advisory group that was working closely with the prosecutor? Is that sort of still?
Sure. Let me make a couple broad points, and then I'll come to the issue of the prosecutor general. Broadly, as you know, for over the course of months, we have rallied the world to respond to to respond to Russia's unprovoked and unjustified war of aggression against Ukraine, ensuring a secure and stable Europe and protecting the international rules-based order. That is profoundly in our national interest. But beyond the external threat that Ukraine faces from Russia, Ukraine, like many other governments around the world, continues to face another threat to its long-term success as a sovereign, independent, democratic, and prosperous country, and that's corruption. Corruption must be combated even as Ukraine defends itself against Russia's war of aggression. Russia's war against Ukraine poses an external threat, but corruption poses an internal threat. And the threat that corruption poses can be corrosive to democracy, to sovereignty, to the freedoms that the people of Ukraine so desperately wish to retain. So even as we support Ukraine by providing security assistance, we will support sustained efforts in Ukraine to increase transparency, to strengthen democratic institutions, independent anti-corruption infrastructure, and the rule of law while building resilience against corruption. In June, Ukraine took a major step forward in its European aspirations when the EU granted it candidate status, but Ukraine knows it still has work to do, even as it continues to face Russia's brutal attacks. And together with our partners and allies, we'll continue to stand with our Ukrainian partners as they stand up to all threats, external and internal, to their chosen democratic path. And we'll continue to stand with Ukraine in its ongoing efforts to advance democratic and human rights reforms. When it comes to the Prosecutor General, we continue to monitor the situation closely. We join the people of Ukraine in emphasizing the importance of transparently appointing a highly qualified and truly independent successor as Prosecutor General. The independence and impartiality of the Prosecutor General is vital to ensuring the integrity of accountability efforts in Ukraine. The judicial system must be fair, impartial, independent to ensure that both victims and the accused receive justice. And the recent final selection of the specialized anti-corruption prosecutor was an encouraging sign, and we look forward to a swift appointment. And we hope that this momentum continues with, again, the selection of an independent prosecutor general who meets high standards of professional ethics as well as personal integrity. And our assistance and advisory programs support these strategic reform initiatives. We'll continue to provide robust support for the work of the Office of the Prosecutor General for reform efforts, just as we will continue to work with the Office of the Prosecutor General as an institution in the interim on the important efforts through the ACA, together with our international partners, to hold Russians accountable for the crimes that they have committed in the conduct of this war.
And on the corruption piece, obviously the US has pledged a lot of money, as well as the weapons and arms that are going there. There's a lot of humanitarian support. Have you got any evidence that, since you say Ukraine has work to do, like that some of that money may be being lost to corruption, or do you have a way of knowing whether it has?
Well, we know that oversight of these funds is critical. It is something that we have baked into the provision of these funds, in addition to the extensive accountability and transparency mechanisms built into the use of funds in our foreign assistance. The funding package we requested from Congress, and that Congress approved, included millions of dollars to support additional oversight measures, including additional funding for existing inspectors general. And the supplemental legislation also contained provisions explicitly calling for the DoD-IG to review the use of security assistance funds and to provide a written report of that review to Congress. So it's something we're paying very close attention to.
Sorry, I don't want to extend this, but the recent final selection of the special anti-corruption, this guy was chosen in December.
In the grand scheme of things.
It's now July, the end of July.
He
was chosen in December, nothing was done about it, and nothing has still been done about it.
And that's why we're urging for his swift appointment.
Swift? Okay, like swift, like the Iran No, come on, I don't understand this.
We are urging our Ukrainian partners to move forward with his appointment.
Yeah, but you've been urging your Ukrainian partners to move forward with this appointment since mid-December, and he was finally, or actually even earlier, and he was finally chosen at the end of December. Now, obviously, there was a little thing called the Russian invasion, which got in the way, but it's not, this guy's final selection is not recent. I mean, in what world is December recent?
Matt, we are urging his appointment. Our broader point, which despite your
It's not
quarrel
just
with
mine. I don't think there's anyone in
with the
this room that would
descriptor,
think that.
is that our Ukrainian partners, even in the midst of Russia's brutal aggression, can't let their eye off the ball when it comes to corruption.
Okay, well, so are you concerned still about the issue of corruption in Ukraine?
Of course, we're concerned with the issue of corruption in Ukraine, as we are in countries around the world. We know too that this is something that this government in Ukraine has sought to address. It's imperative that they continue efforts to address it because, as I said just a moment ago, corruption can have a corrosive effect on democracy, on sovereignty, on independence, in a way that that stands in contrast to what we are trying to help our Ukrainian partners do in defending themselves against Russia's aggression. Yes.
Do you have any comments on China's most recent comment that on Speaker Pelosi's potential upcoming trip to Taiwan?
I don't. We don't get in a habit of taking part in a back and forth with our Chinese counterparts. In this case, with my MFA counterpart. What we have said on this still stands. It's my understanding that the Speaker's office has not announced any travel, and our approach to Taiwan has not changed in any way. Yes, Alex.
Thank you. Ned, different region, South Caucasus. I've seen your readouts on Secretary's calls yesterday to President Aliyev and Pashinyan. There's one line that I've seen actually, correct me if I'm wrong, 3 or 4 times since January, that Secretary reiterated his offer of assistance in helping facilitating the process to both sides. Does that mean the previous offers have been turned down?
No, it doesn't mean that. It means that we've been able to achieve what we think is a degree of progress, and through continued engagements and diplomatic conversations with our Armenian, with our Azerbaijani partners in this case, we think we can continue that momentum. So the Secretary obviously has had a number of calls with the Armenian and Azerbaijani leadership, but there are a number of people, senior officials in this building who have engaged with their counterparts at all levels to continue this momentum and to continue to offer our assistance in the issues as we seek a long-term comprehensive peace.
But there's one caveat though, which is a Minsk group. Yesterday, President Aliyev's office issued a statement. There was no reference to Minsk group. If you're an average Azerbaijani, you will see your president is lambasting Minsk group every other day. And then you have the State Department readouts referring to very Minsk group, as a possible, let's say, veritable. My question is, there's clearly a mismatch here in terms of how you see it and how Azeri government sees it.
We've made clear in our statements, including I believe in the readouts yesterday, that the United States stands ready to assist these two countries and our like-minded partners in whichever way, whichever format is most effective. We have been a co-chair of the Minsk Group since 1994, but as we've demonstrated, we're also willing to engage bilaterally with the countries to help Armenia and Azerbaijan find that long-term comprehensive peace. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.